Interesting discussion and take some of your questions. So, my first question for Brooks is, what is your position on ethno-nationalism? What do you think about it when you hear people like me and Greg Johnson discussing, reestablishing European homelands and that kind of thing?
Sure, sure. First, thanks for having me on. Nice to meet you guys. Hello to the chat. Glad to be here. And yeah, that's a great question. Very interesting question because I've people have mistaken my stance on these things a bunch of different ways. I've definitely defended certain arguments that similar arguments to you made, Tara, and I've been pretty friendly to some of the stuff that Richard Spencer said and other people. And I would say my opinion is, you know, I think it's fair. I think you guys make fair points, and I think you guys, supporting and going for all the way for a made possible ethno state. I could see the argument there. It's not necessarily something I'm 100% gung ho for. I think it's more I've gotten involved in the argument because, as you probably have seen, there's a lot of people that want to slam that as wholly racist and totally offensive, and how dare anyone ever think of coming up with this idea of a white state. And in my opinion, I think it's okay. It's okay to be white. I've certainly said that, and I still stand behind that term. In my opinion, I wouldn't say I'm as far as like a white identitarian. I'm definitely not as I don't know. If for people who aren't familiar with my channel, as far as my content, it's more of an entertainment based. It's more of a have fun, make some jokes. I review a lot of videos. I am very political on there too. I've done a lot of pro-Trump stuff and a lot of conservative things. I'm definitely a conservative myself. But as far as going that far, that political, I'm not necessarily an activist type. I'm more just like a conversation type, and that's why I'm glad you asked the question here. I'm glad to talk about it. And if it sounds like I'm dancing around a little bit with this, I am. I'm like I said, I'm not like gung ho hardcore. I personally, if we get down to it, I'm not necessarily uh, advocating for an ethno state myself. I think it's just more of I'm sympathetic, and I'm certainly a white guy. I'm a white person, and I believe in the idea of a white identity. I'm not like, I don't know if you want to take that. Some people will probably clip this out and say, white supremacist and white nationalist, which is basically all synonymous with a racist now. But it's not like that at all. It's more just like, in my opinion, I've seen a lot of anti-white stuff out there lately. And that's a lot of things I've actually covered on my channel. The growing anti-white sentiment, just going around everywhere, especially in American politics and colleges and media outlets. It's really not, a lot of places it's not okay to be white, and it's not okay to be proud to be white. And I'm definitely against all that stuff. I think it's okay to be proud of your heritage and be who you are. People don't attack movements like Black Lives Matter or pro Mexican American movements and other other different races in the states. And I don't see the problem with white people kind of banding together and defending themselves. I think it's a lot about being on the defensive at this point, and that's where I come from. I wouldn't necessarily be going all gung ho. I wouldn't be making like pro white stuff. I never really thought about it until recent years. But when you see negative things coming out, like for example, about a year ago, MTV's video, it's like 50 questions for white people, things like that. BuzzFeed has had a few videos like that too. So I'm mostly about combating that anti-white sentiment, and just, yeah, like, again, I think the phrase works for me. It's okay to be white, if that makes sense. And I think I've rambled on enough. Hopefully that clears up your question.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it does raise a few more questions.
Sure.
But yeah, I'd like to ask Greg Johnson, when you hear Brooks's position, what do you think? I mean, for me, it's kind of like, if the current trends continue, whites will become more and more disenfranchised and less capable of defending themselves, and thus vulnerable to exploitation, or more severe exploitation, and even possible, genocide, and being treated really poorly, or at the whim of Islamists in Europe, for example. So, I mean, that's kind of why I feel we do have to take some kind of action. But let's hear from Greg Johnson.
Brooks, what would it take for you to become a person who thinks it's okay to be white, to actually become a person who would become involved in pro-white identity politics? What's holding you back right now?
You know, I don't think anything is really holding me back. I think it's more just, like I said, I'm not a particularly an activist of my, and the things I do on my channel stem from mostly comedic purposes. I mean, I never call myself a comedian, but I make videos, response videos essentially, and I like to have fun with it and respond. So I think the next step, if you're asking, like, okay, for example, if I did see if things did get so bad, something Tara kind of hinted at of like a white genocide, and in a lot of ways, people say the pro-diversity movement is a subtle way to weed out white people, multiculturalism. But yeah, I mean, if I saw something like, people getting hung in the streets or something terrible, I would certainly be more like, I would jump in like harder. But at this point, I'm just kind of like making my videos. I make my points, and I'm not trying to avoid it. I'm just I'm making videos as almost like an entertainer. It's not like I'm not an activist channel. I don't want to be. I'm not like a political hardcore kind of thing. If that answers your question.
Yeah, I mean, of course, it's fair enough to be involved in, to the extent that you want to be involved, but it just seems. I mean, are you not aware of what's happening in South Africa, which is currently being documented by Lauren Savin?
Oh yeah. I've seen her videos, and that is certainly terrible. I've prepped a few lines and stuff. I'm gonna make a video about that. But I guess, if I don't want to, like, God, I don't want to compare myself to Hollywood or anything like that. But that's kind of the way I see it now that we put it out there like this. It's just it's like an actor who has activist or political tendencies on the side, or maybe like a director that has the themes in their movie or something. But I guess I'm just not going as far, because I'm not a politician or an activist. I don't think so.
I would ask, like, do you personally feel like it's important for white people to take action to prevent ourselves, like, as a white person, not necessarily as a creator, but just as a white person with a white family?
Yeah, I think it's important to. I think the main thing right now is to combat the rhetoric and be open to discussing things and saying things like, okay, this is not cool, guys. This is, you see a report on, I don't know. I think there was one on CNN. I saw a tweet yesterday. Something, it was about the mixing of America. It was like a very like multicultural, like anti-white kind of tweet, maybe a little coded, maybe a little subtle. And it was like, I think the main thing anyone can do is just to not let that slide. Say something, speak up as a normal person, or you have your job at doing this or that. It's just, don't be afraid to speak up. And I know it could be offensive, and I don't want to be a dick either, like, because I'm not speaking up like at I don't know, at a mall or something random. I'm not gonna like try to make controversy, but when I'm on Twitter and I see something like that, I'm gonna respond and be like, this is bullshit. And that's what I do. I combat the internet's bullshit, essentially.
Right. I'd like to hear from Greg. I mean, Greg, obviously, to you, this is something that's kind of urgent, or I get that impression at least. Why is this campaign urgent to you, and why do you believe it's so important?
Well, part of what I would like to understand is what causes people to get more involved, other people, right, to get more involved or not, to be on the sidelines or to actively get involved. For me personally, my involvement, I think, comes from having a rather long time horizon. I think way ahead. I think 13 or 14 moves ahead in a game of chess or whatever. I see also that basic forces and principles operating today are going to produce effects down the road that are bad, that are inimical to the interests of my people, our group. And I want to sound the alarm about that first and foremost. I want to get people's minds changed about this. I want them to be aware of it. One of the reasons why we're in this situation is that politics, especially in democratic societies, has very short time horizons. Why is it that people get into terrible debts? Why is it that people have drug problems? Why is it that people, don't get an education, don't have a good job? They wake up at 40 and they're still partying and acting like a teenager. Why is it that things like that happen? It happens because people discount the future for present fun, right? They want to indulge themselves in the present and they don't want to think ahead. If they're in some kind of competition, for instance, in a political campaign, and it's close and they need a little edge, they'll do something to pander to the public, right? They'll say, I stand for cheaper soda, and they'll make that kind of an issue, right? And of course, having cheaper soda isn't really good for people in the long run. But for this selfish guy in this campaign, casting around looking for demagogic talking points to try and give him that extra percentage in the polls makes sense. And so we live in a society where it's increasingly focused on the future, where fewer and fewer people think far ahead, and where the principles on which this society functions are, in the long term, inimical to our interests, because we've got a situation where we've got an ethics in place and a set of social incentives in place that in practically every white society in the world, there's now below replacement birth rates. And at the same time, practically every white society in the world has its borders open to non-white immigrants who have above replacement birth rates. We have that alone is enough to ensure that we will disappear as a people unless we change that. In day-to-day politics and culture and economics and in every interaction that we have in Western societies, we play by these rules. White people are presumed to be sort of the universal subject. We're just humans. We're somehow just humans. That's how we think of ourselves. We're just humans. We have human rights. Everybody else thinks of himself as belonging to a specific racial and ethnic group. All those groups get to play the race card, the group card, and we don't. We won't do that. And I use the analogy of playing poker. If you're playing poker and you've got a huge stack of chips, but everybody else in the game gets to play a wild card and you don't, you're at a systematic disadvantage. And the more hands you play, the smaller that stack of chips is going to get until you have nothing and you exist at the mercy of these other people around the table. And they're going to look at you as a chump at best. They'll look at you more likely as a hated enemy, and they're going to be delighted to see that you've lost everything. That's the way that's the way the game of multiculturalism is played in every country that's adopted it. And we can't play that game much longer or we'll lose everything. So that's the reason why I have a sense of urgency, because I look ahead. I see that principles give rise to results down the road. I get upset about issues of character. Heraclitus said, character is destiny. When I see people of really bad character involved in particular enterprises, I know that down the road, that character is going to come out and it's going to destroy any enterprise that this person is involved in. So I just look further ahead, and I want to get other people to look further ahead. And unfortunately, the tendency of human beings is to be caught up with stuff that's right in front of their noses. Why? Because it's there, it's urgent, and also because it requires abstract thinking and what ifs that aren't just arbitrary sci-fi scenarios, right? To penetrate into the future and to think about what's likely, what's possible, what's coming down the pike, what we have to avoid. So that's why it's urgent for me. But I understand that that's not the way most people think, and I need to quote Gordon Baum, who used to run the Council of Conservative Citizens. He said to me once, he said, "Greg, you got to get it down where the chickens can get at it," meaning you got to make this popular, right? And I'm trying to unwrap that puzzle, how to get things down, unravel the puzzle, right? How to get it down there where the chickens can get at it, how to make racial Armageddon, which is approaching, real and immediate to white people today, so other things just don't seem important to them anymore.
Yeah, that's fair. I hear I hear you, Greg.
Yeah, I I'm not meaning to like pick on you, Brooks. I feel a little bit perplexed.
Come on, bring it.
I just feel a little bit kind of perplexed about this because it's like, I do feel like we're in imminent danger. Like well, I personally do feel in danger just going to like multicultural areas like, London nowadays. But, where I've been mugged 3 times, it's kind of like you get to a point where you're just like, it's just a no-go zone for me.
Yeah.
And you see this spreading like a cancer across the rest of your country. I mean, how can you not want to speak up and say, hey, we need to do something, Well,
I mean, I think I speak up. I mean, I don't know where, if it's enough or if it's enough for you or certain groups. Like I said, I know it sounds like I'm tiptoeing around, but I mean, I certainly speak up. I make videos every week, multiple videos, not all on this topic, but I definitely address it, every couple of weeks, every week something is coming up and I'm combating it. I'm in the trenches with this kind of rhetoric, and I've combated it enough times that I know the drill. I'm out there, debunking things like, it's more like pop culture for me. I think if we're gonna break things down, there's different realms for this kind of situation, this white, let's save the whites kind of idea. I mean, there's not everyone's going to be a political activist. You're going to have people in other areas doing things in entertainment or in music or in in actual politics in the Senate or something like that. So I think in my realm, it's more just in the media combating and just tearing down stupid ideas. I mentioned things on MTV or these really, really prevalent videos that are out there. Like one series I tackle a lot is MTV Decoded, and that one's kind of died down. That was more last year, but they did make a new video that I covered last week, so they're still coming out with it. So in my opinion, it's the kind of thing where if you're battling the rhetoric and if they're still getting propped up and they're still getting multi-million-dollar support from companies like MTV, major networks, then there needs to be someone who is replying that and saying, no, this is not right. This is not true. For example, let's talk about just real quick, the video I did last week. It was like about, it was basically about Ebonics, and MTV Decoded was saying how axe instead of ask is okay to say because it has like some kind of tradition. And they're basically kind of like defending Ebonics, and it's just like if you can kind of go down that road in your head, you're like, okay, we're defending broken English, and we're talking about kind of propping up this side And, you know, we're propping up this side of like, oh, it's okay to say acts. You don't need to speak proper English. And what is proper English? Since we're talking about white identity stuff today, I mean, that's like the American white people English. And a lot of that video was about bashing that too. It's like, okay, you hear proper English and you think that's like rich white people. That's negative for MTV, and then it's okay to like kind of not speak properly. And so, I mean, this is a more specific example, but what I'm getting at is, you know, there's this rhetoric that is out there, and I'm kind of like trying to pick it apart, and it's working. I mean, I'm getting attention. People are seeing my videos, and I think that's another important part of this process. Is, you know, on my side, there's a reason, you know, I'm not like trying to focus on activism stuff and certain other topics too much, because frankly, I mean, like there's not a lot of views there. There's not a lot of people that are that hardcore. You guys mentioned that before, you know, people aren't really stepping up. They think about the day to day, but I think other people have mentioned this. This is like an entry point for a lot of people. This is where people are going to come to my channel, and this is going to be the first time they've heard someone say it's okay to be white. And it's because I'm not just covering only that. Like they might bring them in because I reviewed the episode of South Park, or it might be I talked about Star Wars in a video, and then the next week I'm talking about how you know, the things I was saying before, how, you know, MTV or another channel, CNN, has an anti-white video, and then I'm going off on that, and then they hear me say something like, oh, you know, it's okay to be white people do this, and then I'll talk about the stats. You know, on another side, I'll talk about the black crime stats and how they're wildly out of proportion, and it's just this problem that the media and everyone wants to cover up. So I'm like dealing with these race issues, and I'm not trying to get an ego or anything here, but I think I'm trying to give you guys an idea of what I'm about, because I'm not sure how familiar everyone is with my channel and videos. I'm not super famous or anything like that. So that's kind of that's where I'm thinking.
Okay. I mean, like, fair enough. I mean, if you view yourself as kind of like a step on the ladder, or however you would put it, then, I mean, that in itself to me just sounds like you're being strategic. You know, it doesn't sound like you're kind of passive on this topic. It sounds like you're actually just kind of sugarcoating, as someone said in the super chat, the message for normies.
Sure, you could say that. You could say that, and I certainly have a strategy. I'm not going to say I have some sort of master plan. I'm not like plotting in the backgrounds in some secret Discord server like a lot of lefties will do nowadays and trying to attack people. But I have a methodical process. Anyone that's seen my videos knows that they're highly edited and written and scripted and put together with the messages I intend, and this is a lot of it. And the last thing I'll say is, yeah, there's other tweets, like other people have mentioned this gateway stuff. I'm actually, Richard Spencer watches my show. He's tweeted it a few times, and he's mentioned other people like us. I think he said like Black Pigeon Speaks and other people that are like, I think he even mentioned Sargon. This might have been a while ago, but he was mentioning these other YouTubers that are good, like kind of stepping stones or gateways into further more active roles into the alt-right, or even further into like ethno-state arguments and stuff like that. So there's definitely like a line, you know, it's a stepping stone kind of thing.
Sure. Well, yeah, I actually wanted to ask Greg Johnson right now. I mean, Greg, you know, now there have been some mixed feelings and things that I've heard from other people about what we call the alt-light, or people who don't quite go all the way, you know, for various different reasons. What's your perspective on this, Greg? Do you think this is helpful, or do you think these people should just kind of come out and go all the way?
Well, ideally, I'd like everybody to be on board openly with white nationalism, because that's how we're going to win. That will be the sign that we have won, right? When practically everybody you know knows an open white nationalist, an open, unapologetic, principled white nationalist. Right now, the establishment can portray us as marginal and scary people, because most people don't have any contrary first-person experience of a white nationalist so that they basically just have to accept what the media tells them about us. Once we get to the point where we're a visible enough minority and a confident enough minority that everybody knows a white nationalist personally, then we can represent who we are without having to do it through the lenses of the mainstream media or through our own alternative media. We can represent ourselves in face-to-face interactions. I think at that point, our movement is going to be unstoppable and it will start spreading virally. Now, I believe, though, that I'm trying to articulate something new here. Just give me a sec. Well, let me just back up. I do think that white nationalism has effective alternative media now. I mean, that's very, very clear. But but most people still encounter us through the lenses of the mainstream media, and that's a problem. Once our media grows enough, and once our presence in the 3D world grows enough, then we're going to be able to get around the programming that's being put out there by our enemies. Then we can represent our own ideas, and then I think they're going to spread more quickly. Until then, we just have to keep doing what we're doing. We have to keep building up our media, but we also have to keep bucking up people and encouraging more people to be open. But in terms of the alt-right, in terms of today, I think that to get to that point, we have to think in terms of a spectrum of opinion. And out here on the edge, where you and me, you and I, Tara, are, we're open white nationalists. We're open ethno-nationalists. We're defending, I think, the most extreme position, the most principled and open and unapologetic position. However, there are going to be people who are not comfortable with that yet, and they're going to be uncomfortable with it for two basic reasons. One, they don't fully agree with it, which we need to work on. We need to persuade them. And then two, there are going to be a lot of people who are fully on board or 99% on board, whatever, but they have certain personal relationships, certain social situations that lead them to hang back. And they might want to stake out a position that's officially, openly, a little closer to the mainstream than us. My attitude towards people like that is good for you, because in order for us to end up dominating the whole culture and pulling the whole political spectrum in our direction, we need to colonize every little space, every little niche in the great coral reef of opinion, right? There's got to be one of us everywhere in every little ecological niche, every intellectual niche in the society. And when we do that, then we have a kind of railroad. There are stations along the way stations from being a normie conservative or being a normie leftist to coming closer and closer to our views until you finally arrive at what we want. And the key, though, is this. We always have to make sure that the people who are in these intermediary niches are functioning as gateways rather than gatekeepers, that they're allowing discourse and people to flow in our direction, that they are allowing us to pull the Overton window in our direction. If they're on board with that and if they're helping, that's great. But there are some people out there, and I'm thinking of Gavin McInnes, frankly. He's a great disappointment to me. His entire life now seems to be dedicated to preventing people from moving from his multi-culti, Western chauvinist, civic nationalist position to something more honest and intelligent and real. And that's a problem. So my attitudes toward the alt-right are twofold. Basically, if I think these people are helping us and are not actively working to harm us, then they're good, and I want to cultivate ties with them. I want to be chummy with them and friendly with them. I want to be chummy and friendly because I want to be able to go on their shows. I want them to not attack me. There's a target-rich environment out there, and I don't want them choosing me to attack when they could be attacking people who are my enemies as well. So I want to be as friendly with these people, as open to these people, as interactive with these people as possible. And I think that the great error, the classic rookie error that exists in our movement and is usually practiced by people with some sort of narcissistic personality disorder, is the idea that you have to polarize everything. That if there's anybody between you and the mainstream, you've got to attack them. Attack, attack, attack. This is Alex Linder's completely stupid and unproductive polarization strategy. Attack, attack, attack. And people think that somehow, if they're forced to choose between a bunch of rabid, snarling, hateful radicals out here on the far, far right and the mainstream, that if they're forced to choose, they'll choose us, which is an absurdity, right? It's just, if you're going to force polarization, you have to have something attractive for people to jump on board with. And we don't have that. We simply don't. But there are people with polarizing personalities and polarizing ideologies who have basically they've polluted and I think occluded any possibility of working with people on the alt-right, between white nationalists and people on the alt-right. And I think that's very bad, because let me just tell you one quick thing. Spencer Quinn, a little more than a year ago, wrote an article for Countercurrents about Milo Yiannopoulos. And Milo noticed this and linked it on his Facebook page. And within 2 days, we had gotten 90,000 people who came to read that article. It just completely blew away all of our stats for February and March, because it was the last day of February and the first day of March that this happened. And it was amazing. I want that kind of productive relationship, because the people on the alt-right have enormous audiences, and we want to convert those vast audiences. When Lauren Southern, who was working for Rebel Media and was in the alt-lightosphere, right, did a video about this time last year about Millennial Woes and his doxing. Millennial Woes got, I think, 10,000 new subscribers to a channel that had 20,000 subscribers. It was a gigantic increase in his visibility. I want us to get new eyes. And so we need to go where those eyes are. And that is people who are closer to the mainstream, who are willing to talk to us. And the idea that somehow we're going to win the battle if we go in guns blazing, attacking these people and trying to force a polarization is foolish. It just makes us marginal. And that's what we don't want to be. We don't want to be marginal. We want to be mainstream. And by mainstream, I do not mean changing our ideas to be more like the mainstream. I mean getting more mainstream people to change their ideas to ours. That's the goal. But to get to that goal, we have to have a productive relationship with people who are closer to the mainstream. We've got to build connections and then use those connections like a chain to start pulling the Overton window in our direction. But if there's no connective tissue, right, if there are no connections between us and the mainstream, how are we going to move the mainstream?
Yeah, I very much agree with you on that, Greg. I personally, I think that alt-right can be a great asset to us. If we are just reasonable and accept the fact that not everyone is going to either feel comfortable or even genuinely hold those views, either privately or publicly, that we hold, but they can still be assets to us. It's just like in any other area of politics. You don't have to have, everyone you work with having the exact same position you have on like taxation or something, So I find it quite ridiculous that people feel the need to like disavow and or attack people just because they don't hold the exact same views. And also we should remember that people are susceptible to changing their political views, and we have seen a number of previously alt-right figures actually come over basically to ethno-nationalism and kind of disavow civic nationalism in the past 6 months. And
Exactly.
I'm actually really happy with this because they've taken their huge audiences and actually presented them with a little nudge in our direction. So we would be really stupid to look this gift horse in the mouth, I think.
Exactly. I completely agree. I also tell people who 6 months ago were civic nationalists and now they're white nationalists, and their first instinct is to go in with cudgels and beat civic nationalists bloody, to say, wait a second here, have a little compassion, be real. 6 months ago, you held these same positions. So how is it that these people are the enemy if the positions that they hold today are the same positions that you held 6 months ago? There's something unreal about that. There's something ungenerous about it. And I think we need to get over that kind of attitude. There was a time in my life where I had to screw up my courage just to sit down and read ideas that were a little outside the mainstream in the privacy of my own home. There are a lot of people in that position today. The fact that our movement is growing so much means that there are quite a lot of people in that position today. And if you've got no sympathy with those people, well, you're not being real about yourself. And if you're not being real about yourself, you're not going to actually be very good at persuading people, because to be good at persuading people, you've got to empathize with them. You've got to understand them. And if you can't even understand yourself and understand, therefore, other people who are in the same position today that you were in 6 months ago, you're not going to be a very effective persuader.
I have thoughts on that too. I think as far as this idea of persuading people, and you're talking about, trying to bring more white nationalists about, make it more commonplace and that kind of thing. I think a lot of it has to do, and I think a good strategy is things like entertainment and humor. I think the idea that you can forcibly red pill people is a little tough. It happens, and I know there's a lot of smart people out there, but I think a lot of it comes from portraying these ideas in a story or in a thematic way, and having some kind of humor and jokes in there. And again, I'm not like trying to be like the joke guy here today, but I feel like I am a little bit, because I'm obviously not, I'm not like that deep into the rhetoric and the ideology, but I'm here because I think the gateway and the way to get down to people is to appeal to them through like a story or something. It's not just about like hitting them with hard facts all the time, and that does work and that can help down the line. But as far as trying to open things up to the public and to talk to more people and to get more people to hear your side, I think there's a lot to say when it comes from like a funny place. And I don't want to just use mine as an example. I think there's other places like that on there. I've mentioned other YouTubers that are like more entertainment based, more funny videos. I think another one worth mentioning, and this is a little bit extreme, but I recently come across the Murdoch cartoon, which I think is hilarious. And they definitely are far like, edgier, and they're great for, they might go too far, but that's why I love it. I'm a big fan of cartoon comedy, late night, Adult Swim. I've covered like South Park and Family Guy stuff that's more mainstream, but if you get what I'm saying, it's things like that are really important tools and important things that can help, kind of bring people around, because it's like you can only tell people so many times, oh, this is happening, this is happening, multiculturalism is weeding down these numbers in your people. But when you can display it in a story, in a joke, and in something entertaining, I think that's where you can really get in and get out there, because there's a lot to say about humor. And I'm seeing the chat too, and this is another one I should mention, is like the $1 Million Extreme which was formerly a show, and now it's turned into these internet message boards and stuff like that. And that's a page I follow on Reddit, and I get laughs out of it all the time. And that's the kind of thing that you see that laugh, and you see that joke, and sure, a lot of it's offensive, and you might not even necessarily agree with all of it. But I think that's the kind of thing that's really going to help the cause here, and talk about things, and bring people around, as far as just because I think a lot of people get turned off when they're just hearing like rhetoric and then the debates, the idea of lots of debates. I'm not against that. I know you guys have had your fair share of debates. I think there's been a few on this channel for Terra, and that's cool, and I think that does need to be done. But I think in my personal opinion, I don't think many people really like debates or care for them. I think a lot of people that are hardcore and like to see them on YouTube, that's fine, and that's like it's kind of more of a niche. But if you want like a wider audience, you have to do some more of the things like I was saying with the humor and the entertainment stuff.
I agree with that. I think that's extremely valuable, and I think that what you're doing is extremely valuable. You're fighting the culture war, basically, and that's definitely a huge part of the struggle. I'm not familiar with your work, and one of the reasons why I wanted you to talk about yourself and what you're doing is so I can get more familiar with it. But sure. I definitely agree that humor and satire, making videos, telling stories, things like that are extremely important things. One of the things that's been such a refreshing change in the last basically 4 years or so now in the movement has been the rise of really fantastic memes. And
yes.
I think that what that's a sign of is very important, because when I first got involved with this right-wing scene, it was full of people with sour faces, sour, grimacing faces full of hate. It was not a inviting group of people. They were not funny. They did not joke around. They basically, psychologically, they were in a highly defensive and inferior position. If you could picture their minds were in the same posture as somebody down on the ground getting beaten by a policeman with a nightstick, right? They're trying to protect themselves. They're curled up into a little ball trying to protect themselves. That's how a lot of people felt. And of course, there's good reason for that, because deep in their hearts, that's what the authorities and the enemies in our society want to do. They want to beat us and throw us in jail, or worse. And psychologically, white people take a beating all the time. But the fact that there is a new right that is risen, that is funny, is incredibly interesting, because you can only laugh if you feel superior to your enemies. That's one of the underlying facts about laughter that I think is so powerful. Laughter is a form of glorying in your own superiority, and we feel superior to them now. We feel intellectually and morally superior to the left, and we can laugh at them. And I've always laughed at them because I always felt superior to them. I didn't have this beaten down posture. And it's refreshing that there are more people like that, because that's a sign that psychologically we've already won. And it's just a matter of, mopping up at this point. There's going to be a long mopping up operation, but psychologically we've already won. And another sign of that is that the left has the shittiest, dumbest, unfunniest memes.
That's where I was going to go. Yeah, that's the next thing I was going to say, is that the left can't meme, and their videos are so not funny.
They're so not funny. I was a little disturbed recently when I saw a leftist meme, and it had a picture of Trump and a picture of Bannon on it, and both looking sour. And it said something like, if Trump and Bannon get divorced, and then there's a picture below it of like the Charlottesville rally, who gets custody of their Nazis? And I actually laughed at that one, and I thought, uh-oh. That's like the first funny meme, the first leftist meme that I've laughed at ever. This might be a bad sign, but generally speaking, their memes suck. They're hilarious.
Yeah.
They're just horribly bad. And that's a sign that psychologically they feel inferior. They used to be so effective at mocking us, and now it's just so weak. It's so weak. And I'm very, very optimistic because of that.
Yeah, and
That
I was
alone is a huge, huge sea change in the culture and politics.
for sure, and that's where I was gonna go further with that was not only the fact there's a lot of good humor coming up on the right and conservative side. It's also like you're saying that left can't meme, and I see some of these videos and they're trying to get into the same realms, and they're just so dry, boring, and unfunny. I mean, I don't even know if they try to joke. I see sometimes there's attempts at humor, and let me set this straight though. I don't consider myself like a comedian. I'm not like a professional like joke master or anything. This is more just like what I think is funny. But I think I have a good taste. I have pretty good taste, I've been told. So it's just I watch these videos and I'm just like, this is so unfunny. It's so cringy, and they try to attack. And I've had tons of videos uh made about me and about people on like us and stuff, and I'm just watching and I'm just like, okay, first of all, they're not funny at all, and when they try maybe like one joke and it just doesn't hit at all. And then the next step is what they do is they try to be smart. They like try to act like they're smarter than they are, and that's something I try to never do. People have said, I think I'm like this wannabe smart guy or something, but I don't see that at all. I'm a pretty like down to earth, open speaker. I never like, I don't know. I'm not like a smart guy wannabe. I don't know. Now I'm gonna get quoted with saying I'm not a smart guy, but you know what I mean. I'm not like this pompous, this arrogance that you see on the left of just like they think they're so much better, and they start to rely on their intelligence, their supposed intelligence, and they put out all these like sources, and they think if they link to you all these old things, like, oh, there's these links, and then there's all this, and then they point to all this stuff, and it's just not, that doesn't work. It doesn't matter. And a lot of people like want to like oversource their things, and sources are great, and that's cool if you want to like have that in there. That's important for a lot of certain videos, but that's not the meat of it. You can still have a great video without any sources. It's more like about how you're portraying your message, and are you right? Are you on the right side? Are people going to agree with you? So I think there's that. And then I think it gets even worse on the left because they're getting desperate. They know they're not funny. They've discovered that they're not smart. And then they eventually kind of spiral into these like attack campaigns. They coordinate these secret groups. They do doxings, and they do false flaggings on channels like us. And it devolves into insanity because they're desperate. And I think like Greg was saying, that we're in a position where the tide is shifting a little bit, and we're starting to see that. And I think the left is struggling with that loss of dominance in certain arenas. They sure have their foothold in the media and in colleges in certain places still, but I think the tide is turning.
Yeah, I actually wanted to say, like earlier, Greg said that like our position is like extreme, but actually, I mean, I just really don't feel like it is extreme, because ever since like the very beginning of when I first stumbled across an AmRen video and learned the truth about race and IQ and started questioning things about what I've been taught and stuff, ever since then, I'd always, I mean, well, even before then, but like the reason I came to this conclusion is because I'm pro-truth. So when that's your foundation, it's pretty hard for people to like outwit you or make fun of you, because truth is a pretty hard component, a hard opponent to beat, right?
It's a great ally to have.
For sure.